so enthusiastic, isn't he? Back at MITA, back at MJ Unpacked, here at MITA Unshackled, and we're doing another one of our ESPN game day style things, where we pick up 3 interesting individuals wandering around here at MJ Unpacked, and everyone at MJ Unpacked, from vendor to sponsor to attendee, is involved in some sort of interesting way in the cannabis business, and as we know, cannabis advocacy as well. But first of all, let me thank our sponsors again, Calyfx. Thank you to Jack Herrera, the official legacy Jack Herrera brand, looking to come to a market near you, and Pure 5, the #1 cleanest, fastest, smoothest, sexiest extraction machine in cannabis. And I, again, am Dimitri Downing, your host, and I'm pleased to be joined by Bridget, Nikki, and Rebecca, who are 3 extremely well-known advocates in the cannabis space. And I'm just getting to know them because I'm kind of a West Coast guy, and they're kind of Northeast girls, right? Ladies?
Yes.
Ladies. So I can't say girls or ladies. Say girls is like more youthful, you know what I'm saying? All right, so let's let our audience get to know you as I get to know you, and I'll try to ask them the questions that they might ask. But let's start with Dr. Bridget.
Yes.
Dr. Bridget.
Yes.
Tell us about Dr. Bridget, Dr. Williams, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams.
Yes.
But you go by Dr. Bridget.
People like me.
That's a cool name. I like that. So tell us about you, Dr. Bridget. How did you end up becoming a cannabis advocate?
So, short story is
or
that
doctor, which is kind of a big deal too.
Sure. So, I am traditionally a family physician. I spent almost 20 years at the Cleveland Clinic in family medicine, occupational medicine, and I got tired quickly. I felt that my patients were unhappy, I was unhappy, and so I actually started taking patients and helping them get off of medications. One of those people was a recent breast cancer survivor and diabetic. She started asking me about cannabis. I thought she was absolutely off a rocker, so I started looking up information to prove it, and I got proved wrong. I saw all this incredible information about cannabis at that time, and I supported her journey, and I saw cannabis helping her in a way that pharmaceuticals were not.
What year did you kind of like come to? My awakening happened between 2012 and 2015. I was a just say no Nancy Reagan kind of guy.
Right, me too, right? The egg in your brain, and you know. So, I mean, this was about 12, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now I have a T-shirt that says plant-based remedies are safer than pharma.
Yes, absolutely. And I saw how we were all being manipulated by the system. And so she did incredibly well, but this was slightly illegal at the time, at least in the state of Ohio. And so when it became legal in Ohio, I wanted to be a part of it. And so I've created a couple brands and opportunities around changing the stigma and helping patients in this space.
Yeah. It's the collective ignorance of how prohibition came about and how it continued. It just never ceases to amaze me and shock me. Spending a lot of time educating people. So
Yes.
what brands you say you created?
So my original business is Green Harvest Health. We had 4 offices before COVID, then going down to 2 with telemedicine. And so it was it's a medical cannabis and integrative office. Since then I've branched into drbridgetmd.com, which does cards, integrative medicine. Plus we have 2 CBD lines, a medicinal and a lifestyle brand.
Right.
The lifestyle brand is Embody, as well as creating a book series called Courage in Cannabis.
Excellent. What are the 2 CBD brands? Are those available online?
Yes. So there is Green Harvest Health is the medicinal brand at greenharvesthealthcbd.com, and Embody is my favorite, right? The beauty and lifestyle, and that's at myembodylife.com.
myembodylife.com. Well, that's fantastic. Now tell us about your books.
Yes. So when I started seeing patients in this space, I was really, everyone's talking about homegrown legislation and all these different aspects of the political aspect of cannabis. And that first patient I gave a card to was this huge guy, and he started crying. And I was like, what's going on here? And he was like,
boys don't cry. I'm just kidding. It's a song by The Cure.
All right.
Boys don't cry. You know the song?
We encourage authenticity, whatever it may be, right?
I am nothing but a series of ridiculous 80s references.
I can appreciate that. So, but he said, I can show my son my card. I can tell him I'm not a pothead. I can tell him this is my medicine. And that really hit me. And then I had another woman come in, and she was tearful, and she was like, I can go back to church. I can show them I'm a real patient, and I can start going back to church again. And I realized that there was another whole set of stories that were not being shared about people that were coming from the legacy space that were dealing with shame and guilt and how this changed their life, let alone how they were coming back and how it was helping their pain, anxiety, fibromyalgia, cancer, and all these other conditions. And so I actually started writing these stories down because they were so moving. I went from writing them myself and turning it into anthologies where I actually get the people, they write their own stories. We shape them, coach them, help them become authors. And so our first book was 18 authors that share how cannabis and CBD changed their life, from patient care to entrepreneurship, educators, all of the above. And incredible experience where we actually network, we stay together. It's not just turning your story, but we're a community. And now we're working on book 2, which is much more authors, 24 authors with sparks, which are people that are writing little testimonies, and they're prominent people in the cannabis space, or they're writing quotes. Ed Rosenthal, Adam Wilkes, Mike Tyson from Tyson 2.0, Jane West, Marilyn Mather of Patients at a Time, and numerous people that I met over the last 2 years that influenced me as I entered into this cannabis space.
And why do you call them sparks?
Because they're shorter, and
Okay.
they're just testimonies or short
Yeah.
short quotes.
Is that a technical term, or is that something you use?
Sparks? No, I was being creative.
Okay.
Like spark it up.
Well, you said anthology. I was like, okay, I don't use that word very often in a sentence.
Collection of authors.
So I'm
And
going to give you credit for knowing a lot of big words.
Oh, no.
And then
No,
you
the
said
sparks
and I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound like it's technical term.
No,
but-
sparking it up. Just like little short snippets in
Snippets.
between all the other larger chapters.
Oh, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh, good.
I was trying to learn from your vocabulary, and then you
Yeah.
threw that down. So I just had to. I like snippets better.
Yeah.
But that works. And I haven't heard the word anthology. Anthology?
Collection of authors.
Yeah, for like 3
Years.
decades.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I'm
That's-
older.
So, well, no, I mean, but I went to Boston University, though.
Yeah.
But I realized I try to like lower it down to like the lowest common denominator so more people understand me.
Sure, absolutely.
So now I found I just speak in metaphors.
Yeah.
Like I like ducks in a row. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Rather than explain the concept of ducks in a row, say ducks in a row.
Sure.
I'm like a child like that.
Yeah. And then Nikki's one of the authors as well for the new book.
So you guys are co-authors. Oh, for
So Nikki's in the
for,
new book.
for the new book.
Yes.
But you have those are your books. The old
Yes.
books. Yeah.
Yeah.
And where can people find those books?
So
Amazon?
book number 1 is now on Amazon, as well as Walmart and BarnesandNobles.com. And honestly, they're online on most small bookstores across America.
Wow, that's so cool. That's exciting. I need to have a book on Amazon.
You
Well,
join
that-
our next book.
I could do a snippet.
You could do a spark.
I could do a spark. Yes. Well, mine would be more like a flame.
Oh, hey,
Sorry,
I love
we're
that.
building off of your language.
I love that.
Yes, we're creating our own little vocabulary over here. So Nikki, and we'll come back to Bridget. We'll
Sure.
join the conversation. You guys can ask questions of her too as well if you want to. So, but let's get you introduced first.
Yes.
Nikki, tell us about your journey in cannabis. And you have this really cool guide, which we'll get to eventually. But let's first talk about you.
Sure. So cannabis actually saved my life in 2017. I'm a former pediatric nurse, and a patient became combative for a vaccine. He hit me in the head. I bounced off into a wall and then back into his head. So I suffered a significant brain injury, and I was prescribed numerous pharmaceuticals. I was in a very dark place, and honestly, a billboard in Nevada came driving by advertising, "Get your medical marijuana card in Nevada today." And when that happened, it was like meant for me. And I began my medical cannabis journey. As a healthcare provider, I was never informed about an endocannabinoid system, nor that cannabis could be medicine. I viewed it literally as hotheads, people getting stoned. And I was exactly what Nancy Reagan envisioned when she had that Just Say No campaign. I
It's a
mean,
hell of a job.
Yes.
I know. I mean, it was really eye-opening that I could go to 50 different providers of medicine, and never once was cannabis or plant medicine or diet or other things introduced, only prescription pills.
And hold your thought for a second, because I always wondered this, and I really asked the question on a podcast. You went to medical school. Where did you go to medical school?
Michigan State.
What do the doctors and the scientists and the professors at medical school, what year did you go?
I graduated in 2001.
Okay, so 1997, 2001. What do they teach the students about the thousands of herbal remedies and plant-based remedies around the world?
Zero.
And what do they say when they're asked about them?
Foo-foo, fake, holistic for holistic people, but not no credibility behind it.
No credibility behind it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, keep in mind, we're all in the medical space, and we've all had this, and we're all a little bit different in our experiences as far as where we went to school and our education, but we all have that in common, right?
Yeah.
That none of us had any.
Training.
Let me tell you what I knew about cannabis. First of all, it was marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
It made you stupid.
Yeah.
And tell me if I'm right, right?
Yeah.
I was also told it gave you gynecomastia or man boobs.
Yeah.
And that was it for me. I don't know what you guys think.
Nikki, in your medical training, though, when you were trained, it always boggles my mind that somebody doesn't say it's just a plant, it's just an herb, it's just a remedy. These are what people do, and what's the the policy? What's the official teaching thing? What was your experience like? As you said.
So, if you would have told me your child was using cannabis to manage their seizures, I would have called Child Protective Services.
Yeah.
Because my license was on the line.
Right.
And it's a Schedule I drug. And it was not a gray area. It was a black and white area. Mm-hmm. And if you're giving your child cannabis without my doctor's medical approval, that's illegal. You're not allowed to do that. And
It's just ridiculous how people, how the healthcare practitioners are directed right at pharma as the answer.
Mm-hmm. I'm 30 to 40 years old.
Yeah, let's talk. Sorry, Nikki, I don't mean to. But first, introduce yourself.
Well, are you?
But you're going to comment.
Okay.
And I want to make sure people know who you are.
So I'm Rebecca Abraham.
Be held responsible for your comments.
Sure. I'm a registered nurse. I have been a registered nurse for 14, 15 years now. And I have been utilizing cannabis since before I was a nurse. I majored in the arts and music. And I also had severe chronic migraines from having a car accident at 14. I went through the windshield. So those migraines don't get better with traditional medicine. I went to nursing school, and I own Acute on Chronic. We are a clinic for cannabis nurses, and we work with physicians like Dr. Bridget, because there are few true cannabis clinicians available globally, and Dr. Bridget's probably one of 10 nationally, one of 25 internationally. So physicians like her are quite special. Advocates like Nikki are quite special because she has this healthcare background, and she's like a true advocate. So I went to nursing school in the early 2000s, and I actually did a project. I said exactly what you did. I did my entire policy project on cannabis, recreational and medical. Why is this illegal? Why do patients not have access to this? It is just a plant. And nobody at nursing school liked me.
That was at nursing school?
Yeah.
Where was that?
In Chicago, on the south side.
Okay.
Yeah, small private school. My entire nursing career, people... I never fit in these systems. They weren't happy. I had many professors try to fail me consistently for years. I was always afraid I was going to lose my license to cannabis, actually, which was wild. I would joke when I had to be drug tested. My husband's a physician. He's a DO. He had a little bit different training than an MD did, but he was never taught about cannabis, and DOs are kind of more hippie, Mm-hmm. But I used to joke when I had to get drug tested, I would be, taking tramadol, which is called tramadont because people can die from it. And I would joke like, oh, look, isn't this so much healthier than cannabis with the 10% all-cause mortality rate here? Mm-hmm. But when I talked about it in nursing school, it it was not talked about, and it just made me a target. Same thing in the hospital setting. I am a fierce defender of healthcare workers and nurses and patients, and all that did is put me in a line of fire to be fired.
Did you have colleagues, though, that were on board with you?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the colleagues, the other working folks were like, Rebecca's an OG. And even in I'm getting my doctorate now, and it's not necessarily the friendliest situation because of my business. I'm graded, I feel like there are harder expectations for me because I'm not a traditional bedside nurse anymore pursuing graduate studies. I'm doing it for fun as an entrepreneur, and they don't seem to love that.
Yeah, I get that.
So, this is, an absolute one of my, I'm going to tell a little story about myself, go right back to you guys. I came into the industry in 2012. I was an ex-prosecutor, trying to figure out what's going on. I thought these hippies found a politically viable way to get high. Nancy says marijuana is bad for you. And never even crossed my mind that I had been going to the doctor for like 12 years, just getting prescribed medicines and stuff. But I did avoid the cholesterol medication that they said I needed back in 2010. But I'm using it now. But that was after 12 years. But the cannabis industry, I spent 3 years, 2012, 2015, studying business, industry regulations, all this kind of stuff. And it's just so amazing to me that so many healthcare professionals weren't and don't speak up about alternative medicine and alternative remedies and nutrition and exercise and all these things that are important, and they focus on prescribing.
I mean, it wasn't always like that, though.
But yeah, maybe, and I wasn't around in the 50s, 40s, 30s,
Sure.
or 1800s, but it's just extraordinary how focused they are
Yeah.
on getting you a pill.
Yeah.
I think it's the drug reps.
It's the pharmaceutical companies, yeah. Without a doubt. We've been brainwashed. And I think when I had that patient and I saw how she did so much better than my other patients that were on pharmaceuticals, I started questioning, and I was new. So I was probably like 3 or 4 years into my career. I started questioning everything I was seeing. Because I was like, if I didn't know about this and it works that well, what else are you not telling me about? What else have I turned my nose up at without even really being at all aware what it actually did? And I realized that there were a lot of things that I would kind of roll my eyes at because it didn't fit into the pharmaceutical model. And then I started getting in a fair amount of trouble at the Cleveland Clinic because I started bucking the system. But my patients we were connecting, and I saw them responding so much differently than they were before.
That's interesting. It's a fascinating thing. So, do you think that we're going to see other herbs and remedies? I mean, is this just the beginning of a massive wave of alternative medicine? And I wonder also that because I think COVID kind of like was also like an awakening. And I watched television like everyone else, and I got COVID like everyone else, and I was scared for a moment like everyone else, like I was going to die or something. An emergency room physician said, whatever you don't ever let them ventilate you, because that increases your chance of injury and complications by like 20%. She said, just avoid it at all costs. So my oxygen level went down to 84, 83. I was like, whatever, so I stayed there in my house because eventually it went through after 4 or 5 days, and I got better. When I started to get better, get back up to 90. And I had no idea what the proper level was supposed to be, but I'm just doing this at home. And then I said, I got to get back to the United States because I'm actually in Colombia at home. But now I fly back, first class, all covered up, Mexico City, Tijuana, cruise across the border there, San Diego, sneak back really fast in 24 hours, get to Scottsdale, call the head of the she's a naturopathic nurse out of Miami, naturopathic doctor out of Miami. I'm like, give me the best naturopathic doctor you know. And she's like, there's one right next to the Mayo, Scottsdale. She's like, they're dealing a lot with COVID. So I walk in there with like 2 masks on because I got COVID, right? And the first thing, she's not masked. And I'm like, okay. And nobody else is in their mask. None of her people are masked. I'm like, but I have COVID. She's like, don't worry. First thing, let me tell you, you're going to survive. We're naturopathic doctors. We're not afraid of a little bug, nor should you be. That moment was like the beginning of the healing. I said, give me all your remedies. And so they gave me all these cool remedies. They gave me this vibration one something that vibrated the mucus out of my lungs. And she's like, well, I'm like, this is great. It's helping me breathe. And I'm like, is this what they do over at the Mayo? She's like, no, they don't do this at the Mayo because they don't have a insurance code for it. And she's like, all the nurses from the Mayo and the doctors of Mayo are sending people over here because we're doing this like steam therapy and all sorts of alternative medicine therapies. 3 days later, I was doing hot yoga again, and 100% my thing was 96. And I was like, holy shit. Thank God for cannabis, because it awoke me to the fact that there was alternative medicine out there. And thank God for, this direction, because that woke me up about a lot of things. Do you guys think the future is filled with more stuff like this?
Was that the first time you saw a naturopath?
That was the first time I went to a naturopathic
really
doctor.
Fascinating. I love that.
Yeah. And I am forever going to go to naturopathic doctors first. I have a problem with my foot right now, and I have a lot of naturopathic remedies happening.
Sure.
And we'll see what happens. And but I did take the cholesterol medication in the end.
And it's not about being anti-pharmaceutical, right?
Yeah.
I don't think none of us are anti-pharmaceutical, but we need to be more open-minded. Medicine used to be clinicians, investigators, scientists that took each patient individually, did their own homework, really discovered and found out what was right for their patient.
And mom and grandma.
And mom, like the aloe and the, God forbid, the cod liver oil and all that stuff, right?
Is there a better doctor and nurse than mom?
No, absolutely, right? Although if I see cod liver oil today, I'm running out of here.
Chicken soup?
Yes.
Yeah. I think I think the future is going to be a balance, because I think there's a famous doctor who says we can't throw all the pharmaceuticals out the window, otherwise the birds would eat them.
That is funny.
I think there's a place for pharmaceuticals, like antibiotics. Awesome. If I get hit by a car, send me to the trauma surgeon for sure. But I think the future is going to be this hybrid where there are things that are botanicals like cannabis, psychedelics are going to be awesome for, and we should explore that in diet and exercise. And I think that's the beauty of what Dr. Bridget's doing. And it's the combination that's really important, because while I worked in critical care while COVID was huge in 2020, and I also ran my business, and I love naturopaths, but I want both. I want both traditional medicine and integrative medicine for sure. And I think that's the future, and I think that's where so many patients are. I don't think it's a pill for everything, but I do think it's going to be some sort of combo. Because
what do you think of ventilators?
I mean, there were some people who needed them and survived. Absolutely. There were some people where perhaps we shouldn't have, but that's all. You don't have enough time on this podcast to discuss the workings of critical care in America.
The fact of the matter is 40%.
I'm not a fan of ventilators.
40% of people are leaving traditional medicine and looking for an alternative care. And that was 2019 statistic. And so post-COVID, I guarantee you that number is much higher than it was, pre-COVID. Yeah. So this cannabis is a part of that new option for people, and that's really exciting.
I have a new litmus test for politicians. The abortion one, that's fine, but I have a new litmus test. Is public health an art, or is it a science, or is it both? And if you answer it's a science, I won't vote for you. If you answer that it's both, you have my vote. If you answer that it's an art, then you're probably going to lose your election, but I love you.
Oh, I left politics to do this. I had a very strange path.
But ultimately, these are the people that are going to make these decisions.
Both. The answer is both. And here's it's my last thing I'm going to say. When we look back at the history of medicine, germ theory, the guy who discovered germ theory, where he's like, hey guys, maybe we should stop using this water pump. I think it's giving everybody typhoid. Everyone laughed at him. And people who believed in germs were kicked out of medicine.
Right.
And it's because they did the practice first and then did the research. And that's what we should do in cannabis. And so when we're thinking about how far medicine and nursing has to come, think about germ theory, because all of the traditional establishment laughed at these people, took away their medical license, and germs are that was very real. So,
well, you guys are very open-minded people and courageous, because you're bucking the system. You're moving away from the status quo, and you're open-minded, and that's fantastic. But we do have to wrap this up because we have another podcast coming in. In 1 minute, closing thoughts and how do people get a hold of you, and maybe summarize a project that you might be working on.
Yeah, www.acuteonchronic.com. Just put in Acute on Chronic on all social medias. Definitely buy Dr. Bridget's book. We would love to be a part of future iterations, 2nd, 3rd, 6th editions, because there will be more. And if you're in Ohio, I've been on the podcast circuit with Bridget for years now, but we finally linked up as we're growing in Ohio. So like, if you're in the Midwest, call us, call Dr. Bridget, but Acute on Chronic, and you can find both of us and buy her book. I don't have a book. You should buy Bridget's book.
Nikki?
Nikki Lawley. You can find me on all social medias, as well as Nikki and the plant spelled out.org.
And we didn't have a chance to talk about Nikki's wonderful pocket guide here. And we'll show it here. How do people get a hold of this?
It's on my website under the resources tab, nikkiandtheplant.org resources. And it really is a breakdown of all the cannabinoids and terpenes and the medicinal benefits of the plant. So I'm an educator and just bringing awareness to the plant in a way that can really make a difference to people.
Well, if you're out at conferences, find her, grab her, stop her. Most of what MITA does is try to educate industry professionals. There's 1 million of them in the United States now. And a lot of them can't leave to go to conferences. So we say, we'll bring people to you.
Wonderful.
And so when you're out, find her.
Yeah. And so I'm Dr. Bridget MD. So that's my Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all of the above. And go to Amazon for Courage and Cannabis. Go to our website, courageandcannabis.com, to learn more about the book, and myembodylife.com, and all of the above.
Well, we will see you out there. Please follow MITA and what we do. And as we develop a national trade organization, we're still interstate and commerce-wise, but we hope to develop a national organization around the best interests of patients and consumers, and working with companies that support that. That's generally the brands. But we don't need to talk about that. That's a long story. So thank you guys. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the networking at MJ Unpacked, and we will see you probably soon enough.
Absolutely. Thank you
for joining us.
Thanks so much.
And thank you to our sponsors, Calyfx, Pure 5, and the original Jack Herrera, coming to a market near you.